Hey, I don't know if anybody knows this, but sometimes when you do 2 or 3 takes, you forget what you might have already mentioned at the beginning. So I'm just going to go in steps here. I feel today accomplished. I feel that the people that need to know. And for those of you that don't know, I can no longer hear out of my left ear, so sometimes I play back the videos and they sound a little loud. But and the other part of that is, I think that it definitely I don't know, it does something with it definitely does something with hearing how things are coming out or whatever. So I don't know how many takes this is on this, but today was a wonderful day. And it's only 10. Yesterday was an amazing day. Amazing day. I'm going to take a break from a little bit of, very little, of the city of Pawtucket just for a second here. We've put a lot of audio and video up of Joseph, and it's, some of them are private, some of them are only linked to certain people. It happens a lot. You just want a smaller group. But one of the audios, and I am going into Pawtucket, but this really has to do with Joseph. One of the audios with Frank Milos, and he knows that I taped everything. If he doesn't know, he's going to find out. But he knows. So during one of the audio conversations with Frank, he said to me, Lynn, sometimes I forget that Joseph was a real person. And it was very confusing to me. And I don't know what the disconnect is there. And I mean, maybe his doctor can tell him. But forgetting that my son was a real person. Did you think that we were just having some kind of a friendship? Or I don't know what Frank looks at for the last 11 years. Like, what does he think that my purpose was to be in front of Frank Milos? Because I can guarantee you, he ain't the person for me to want to have to interact with. I was told to interact with him. I was told that all my questions needed to be placed in the form of an APRA to go to Frank Milos. But it was disturbing when I was listening to this call with Frank, where he forgets that Joseph was a real person. And I want to say that this was at the, because we wrote it down, 8 year, 9 months mark. I'm not sure. I have the dates. Everything, is placed in the right files. So, but it's disturbing. It is very disturbing that a father of two boys doesn't realize that my son was real. He was real. Now, I don't expect him to know, what activities he did, what schools he went to, what cars he drove. I don't expect him to look at him like, I remember when Joseph did this, but do you not think for 1 minute that the only reason that you fucking know me is because my son was real? Well, I don't know, and I'm not saying he's on drugs, but maybe he has had some kind of a blow to the head, or I don't know. Does he deal with some kind of seizure disorder or mental illness? I don't know. Because as much as I would like to think that somebody with half of a brain would be working in the position that he's working in, I can't understand why one part of his brain doesn't work. And let's look at this a little bit more clear. He goes home at night to a wife and a child or two children, and he never looks in her eyes and thinks to himself, if this was my child, if this was my wife, if this was my child, my wife, if I was dealing with this, how offensive would that be? And I want to say it was the 8-year, 9-month, there was a conversation at the 8-year, 9-month, and it could have been closer to the 9-year, but I don't know why 8 years, 9 months rings a bell. But does he think that the Pawtucket Police Department knows my name because I live in Pawtucket? Or is it because I've been calling them out? Through you, Frank. Through you. Having to email you, APRIS, instead of getting answers from the Pawtucket Police Department. And it's very disturbing. Like, I don't know, but it's interesting. It's very interesting to hear those words. That he didn't think that, sometimes he forgets that my son was a real person. Was he a real person when you were giving out his personal information? Or did you not look at him like he was a real person? Did you not care? I mean, I don't want to really bring it up, but Frank Milos has lost his parents. Does he not view them as real people? Because I do. Because I even went to the son of a bitch and said to him, I would have never showed up at your office the day that you lost your mom. And I apologize for that because I didn't know that you had lost your mom. But I still knew that she was a real fucking person. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, why is it hard to believe that my son was real? You've seen many, many pieces of paper past your desk. You know that he was real. You forget that he was real? Did you forget that he was real? And that's why it was okay that Perez lied on him, that Nappy Gonzalez said, I had to have a death certificate amended, that he wasn't identified. Was he not real, Frank? Is that why he wasn't real? Because he was never even identified? Or that Perez made up this whole fucking big story and played that out to the medical examiner's office. You forget that he's real? It was the same thing as Richard LaForest. When I walked into the police department and he was going to be investigating this, because Perez had said that Massachusetts was investigating my son's death. And I walked in and I had a conversation with Richard LaForest, and I was bringing the death certificate to Richard LaForest. And I said, look, this needs to be fixed. This is wrong. And he's like, does it matter? I was there when Joseph was born. I know when he came into this world. And you are not going to tell me that he left the day before he actually died. And that turned into a whole thing where even placing a headstone for my son was traumatic. It was not an easy task. And the first time, you don't think that my son was real, guess what? Christine Bento and I were overseeing my son's headstone. It was the first time that I had felt strong enough to go. And we went, and, because there was a lot of, pullback and everything about putting a headstone. And every time I thought about grabbing that death certificate, that needed to be amended or that had been amended, because I wanted it amended before anything was placed there. And I remember leaving there and having my husband call, because we had a calling card from the state police, because somebody in the Pawtucket Police Department had called and thought I was going to kill Tina Gonzalez. Thought I was going to kill her. I don't know how that all came about. I think that the post was something like, I can understand to kill what's killing you. She actually, I guess, put herself into that situation and felt that she was killing me in some way. Oh, no, sweetheart. No, sweetheart. That's not a thing. I never look at anybody like they're killing me. So, and I'm a Christian and I would never kill anybody. But I remember that, and I remember how real that was, that here I was visiting my son at the cemetery, and my husband's trying to get in touch with me because we had a calling card from the state police. So do you not know that it was real? Because I think you've heard that conversation, because I stood before the fucking council and let them know that I had been over visiting my son at the cemetery when we had a calling card from the state police, thinking that in some way Lynn Farinelli would ever put their hands on anybody or kill anybody. So you're not sure if my son was real? I don't know. I don't know if it's a mental illness. I don't know if it's early dementia. I don't know what it is, but it's concerning. It's concerning when you listen to that audio where he states this, when he has been. Did he think that I was just doing this for, to call this stuff out, and there was, he forgets that he was a real person. He forgets that my son was a real person. And I think that was one of the audios that really triggered me with the whole, what did Frank Milos think this was about? If he forgets that my son was real, what was my purpose? What was my purpose in bringing all this stuff and trying to get his file corrected? What was that, Frank? And I remember him saying to me, it's been all this time, I have to say, I can't believe that, you're still, trying to get this done. And why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? When I had my son, I became a mother. I was with my son for 26 years. He was in my life for 26 years. Those years flew by. You know what hasn't flew by? The last 11. The last 11 because it has been filled with retaliation, bullying. Was that a gunshot? Retaliation, bullying, sorry, I'm distracted. The last 11 years, between privacy violations, Frank Milos covering stuff up, being stalked, Joseph's privacy, we have 500 entries into his log activity. What were they looking at, Frank? Were they looking at a real person's file, or did you disconnect from that? Did you not realize that I'm a real person? And when you were covering up the whole Turtle Boy sports situation, I was a real person. I know that, like, you know what I look like. You know what I sound like. Did you forget that I was a real person too? And that I was in danger, Frank? No, you didn't care about that. And when Kate Peter was requesting my son's information, did you look at Joseph like he was a real person and he had any kind of privacy to a hate group that was sent by the Pawtucket Police Department? I'm just wondering, because this is very intriguing to me, because I've spoken to a lot of people and not one person that knows as much about the situation and the retaliation, the bullying, the privacy violations, the redactions, and the cover-ups and everything, and the Brian Beach and the James Bano and Nappy Gonzalez and all of that. You know all of that, Frank. You know all of that. All of it. Do you look at them as real people that did real things? I'm very intrigued by this. I really am. Do you not look at like this stuff and say, even your part of it, you were doing it to a real person, me. You were doing it to me. I find it funny, and we're going to get into it after August 15th, but Frank Milos was very, very upset that I would call his house. He has 500 fucking entries into my son's file where these people were going into pictures and everything, and they had no business in there. Frank Milos himself lied to us, saying that he did not give Kate Peter from Turtle Boy Sports anything, and they gave him a cost letter. They gave her a cost letter. I guess I'm not real either. And what I've been through, the abuse, and the abuse that I've been through is real. And the pain is very well articulated for the last 11 years with my medical. Very well articulated. And I look forward to moving forward to expose it all.